In 2024, a young family packed their U-Haul and drove 1,200 miles to start fresh in a new city. They'd seen the low housing prices online and thought they'd found the American dream. 3 months later, their car was stolen from their driveway. Their daughter's school went into lockdown twice, and they couldn't drink the water coming out of their tap. They're not alone. Right now, dozens of American cities are facing crises so severe that moving there could be the worst decision of your life. Here are 30 places in the US you should never move to in 2026. Let's start with a name you've probably heard in rap songs and movies. Compton, California isn't just a city with a tough reputation. It's a place where the murder rate is triple the national average, and your chance of becoming a crime victim is 1 in 22. The numbers tell the story. Compton's murder rate sits at 22.5 per 100,000 people. That's 3 times higher than what the rest of America deals with. Violent crime, 1,141 per 100,000, more than double the national average. But here's what makes it worse. If you're planning to go out at night, you better think twice. 63% of violent crimes in Compton happen between 9 p.m. and 3 a.m. The streets that seem manageable during the day transform into something else entirely after dark. The gang presence remains real. The Crips, the Bloods, and various Latino gang factions still operate throughout the city. And while Compton has improved from its peak violence in the 1990s, it's still far from safe. The poverty rate hovers around 23%, meaning nearly a quarter of residents are struggling just to get by. When economic opportunity disappears, crime fills the vacuum. Now, if you think Compton's poverty rate is bad, wait until you hear about our next city. San Bernardino filed for bankruptcy back in 2012, and honestly, the city never really recovered. Today, it's dealing with poverty rates that would shock most Americans and a police force that's barely holding together. The poverty rate is 25.4%, nearly triple California's state average. That means 1 in 4 people in this city lives below the poverty line. But the real crisis is in law enforcement. The police department has a 41% vacancy rate. Let that sink in. Nearly half the positions are empty. The officers who remain are stretched impossibly thin, trying to cover a city that's spiraling. San Bernardino has the 3rd highest violent crime rate in California. Gun violence incidents hit 145 in the past year alone. Methamphetamine-related arrests make up 22% of all drug arrests. And if crime wasn't enough, San Bernardino was just ranked the #1 dirtiest city in America by Lawn Starter in 2025. 75% of residents say they're dissatisfied with pollution levels. The air quality is terrible. The streets are filthy and the infrastructure is crumbling. Speaking of terrible air quality, that brings us to another California city with a similar problem. Fresno makes the list for 2 reasons: crime and air quality. Both are significantly worse than the national average. Violent crime in Fresno is 865 per 100,000, 134% above the national average. The murder rate is 11 per 100,000, double what the rest of America experiences. Vehicle thefts hit 573 per 100,000, putting Fresno in the worst 10% nationally. Your chance of becoming a victim of violent crime, 1 in 116, but crime isn't the only problem. Fresno ranks #2 in the entire country for year-round particle pollution. The American Lung Association found that Fresno averages 54.8 days annually with high particle pollution. That's nearly 2 months of the year where the air is dangerous to breathe. The combination of crime and pollution creates a 1-2 punch that makes Fresno one of the worst cities in California to live in. But at least Fresno never filed for bankruptcy. This next California city can't say the same. In May 2008, Vallejo became the first city in California to file for bankruptcy. Nearly 2 decades later, the city is still struggling with crime rates that terrify residents. The crime rate is 50 per 1,000 residents, one of the highest in the nation. Violent crime sits at 91 per 100,000, which is 244% above the national average. In 2024, homicides actually increased to 25, up from 19 the year before. Motor vehicle theft is particularly bad. Your chance of having your car stolen is 1 in 110, and with approximately 1,000 gang members operating across 40 gangs, the violence isn't going anywhere anytime soon. But there's another crisis most people don't see. Substance abuse hospitalizations in Vallejo are 312 per 10,000 people, the highest in Solano County. Emergency room visits hit 1,480 per 10,000, which is double both state and county averages. The city is also facing a pension crisis. Police pension costs are projected to reach 90% of pay by 2024. That means for every dollar Vallejo pays an officer in salary, it owes 90 cents more in pension obligations. It's financially unsustainable, and Vallejo wasn't the only California city to file for bankruptcy. In fact, this next one filed what was at the time the largest municipal bankruptcy in U.S. history. Back in 2008, Stockton filed what was at the time the largest municipal bankruptcy in U.S. history, but today it's known for something even worse: gang violence. The violent crime rate is 1,277 per 100,000, 229% above the national average. The murder rate is 18 per 100,000. And here's the disturbing part: 68% of homicides in Stockton are gang-related. Your chance of being a crime victim is 1 in 23. That means if you live in Stockton, you're more likely to become a victim of crime than to get a speeding ticket. 96% of California communities are safer than Stockton. Downtown Stockton reports 11,594 crimes per 100,000 residents. The Park and Southeast Stockton areas report 8,567 per 100,000. The poverty rate is 16.8%, and economic opportunity remains limited. For a city that once had promise, Stockton has become a cautionary tale. Now let's head north to a city that experienced one of the most dramatic crime spikes in recent history. Between 2019 and 2022, Portland experienced a 300% increase in shootings. While the city has shown dramatic improvement recently, the damage has been done. In 2025, homelessness in the Tri-County area hit 6,440 people, a 22.5% increase from 2023. The city has raised $1.3 billion since 2021 to address homelessness, yet the crisis continues to worsen. Over 700 tent cities have formed throughout the metro area. The police force has fewer than 800 officers. That's less than Portland had decades ago when the city was half its current size. Response times suffer and officers are overwhelmed. There is good news though. Homicides dropped 51% in 2025, falling from 35 to just 17, the largest decrease among major US cities. Violent crime decreased 17%, and drug-related 911 calls dropped 70%. But the question remains, is Portland recovering or just having a good year? Time will tell. From the Pacific Northwest, let's swing back to the Midwest, where this Illinois city is quietly suffering. Rockford's violent crime rate is 287% higher than the national average, making it one of the most dangerous cities in Illinois. Violent crime ranges between 1,162 and 1,430 per 100,000 depending on the year. In 2024, homicides increased to 19, up from 17 in 2023. The all-time high was 36 homicides back in 2020. Rockford is safer than only 3% of Illinois communities. Let that sink in. 97% of cities in Illinois are safer places to live. The poverty crisis is particularly severe for Black residents, with a 40.2% poverty rate. And here's a disturbing statistic: 44% of violent crime in Rockford is domestic violence. Residents describe the roads as horrible, with endless construction that never seems to finish. Multiple people have described a general sense of despair that permeates the region. While Rockford struggles with crime and poverty, this next Ohio city is dealing with a crisis that's killing people at an alarming rate. Dayton, Ohio, earned a title no city wants: the highest death rate from drug overdose in the United States. Montgomery County, where Dayton is located, has held the highest overdose fatality rate in Ohio since 2011. Fentanyl was found in 78% of lethal overdose ounces. In 2017 alone, authorities seized 22,000 grams of fentanyl and 13,000 grams of heroin. Why Dayton? Geography. The city sits at the crossroads of Interstate 70 and Interstate 75, major drug trafficking routes. Mexican cartels specifically targeted Dayton, flooding the market with cheap, lethal drugs. But drugs aren't the only problem. Violent crime is 1,339 per 100,000, 356% above the national average. Your chance of being a crime victim is 1 in 17. The poverty rate ranges from 26.4% to 29.6%. Dayton represents the worst of the opioid crisis, combined with urban decay. But if you think Dayton is dangerous, wait until you hear about this Michigan city that's actually more dangerous than Detroit. 2024, Saginaw's homicide rate of 46.5 per 100,000 actually surpassed Detroit's rate of 38.7. Think about that. Saginaw is more dangerous than Detroit. Violent crime sits at 2,119 per 100,000, 473% above the national average. Homicides increased 54% from the previous year. The police department has only 88 officers, which is 47% below the national staffing average for a city this size. The cost of crime is $665 per resident per year. That's money that could go towards schools, infrastructure, or economic development, but instead goes to dealing with violence. Saginaw is safer than only 2% of Michigan communities, and there's almost nowhere worse to live in the entire state. Now, the next city is one with a different kind of problem, one that goes beyond just crime statistics. Milwaukee holds a distinction no city wants. It's the #1 most segregated city in America. Violent crime is 1,509 per 100,000, 308% above the national average. Auto theft is around 380 per 100,000, ranking #1 among comparison cities. Carjackings increased 17% in 2025, despite overall property crime declining. The poverty rate is 24.6%, but the real crisis is in the racial disparity. 42% of black children live in poverty compared to just 9% of white children. The segregation isn't just geographic, it's economic and creates two completely different realities within the same city. Milwaukee's schools struggle, job opportunities remain limited in certain neighborhoods, and the cycle of poverty continues generation after generation. From segregation in Milwaukee, let's head south to a city that's actually improving, but still has some major problems. New Orleans achieved its lowest homicide count in nearly 5 decades in 2024, with 124 murders. Homicides dropped 35% from 2023, and non-fatal shootings decreased 44%. That's the good news. The bad news, the insurance crisis is forcing residents to flee. Some New Orleans residents are facing 230% increases in insurance premiums. Louisiana is experiencing the steepest population losses nationally, and it's not just crime driving people away, it's the cost of simply existing. Global insured natural catastrophe losses hit $137 billion in 2024, 37% above the 10-year average. Insurance companies are pulling out of Louisiana entirely, and those that remain are charging prices that make homeownership impossible. Residents cite exhaustion from utility bills, crime, hurricane threats, and now insurance costs. The city is improving in terms of crime, but the insurance crisis might finish what Hurricane Katrina started, and New Orleans isn't the only place dealing with an insurance nightmare. Down in South Florida, the situation is even worse. South Florida's insurance crisis is making coastal living financially impossible. Florida's average homeowner's insurance is between $1,440 and $1,560 per year, the highest in the United States. Monroe County in the Keys averages $7,160 annually. That's more than many people's mortgage payments. 70% of Florida homeowners experience rising costs or coverage changes in 2024. Hurricane Ian in 2022 caused $113 billion in insured losses. Hurricane Milton in 2024 added another $362 billion in damages. According to First Street Foundation, Miami-Dade properties have lost up to $399 per square foot in value due to flood risk alone. The market is starting to price in climate reality, and it's devastating property values. Insurance companies are abandoning Florida faster than residents can find new coverage. Citizens Property Insurance, the state-run insurance insurer of last resort, is overwhelmed. Many homeowners are going uninsured because they simply can't afford the premiums. Now let's get back to talking about crime. This next Alabama city earned a distinction no place wants. Bessemer earned the designation as the most dangerous city in America with 2,368 violent crimes per 100,000 people, the highest rate recorded. The crime index for Bessemer is 0 out of 100. That means it's literally safer than no other U.S. city. 1 in 13 residents is affected by property crime annually. Your chance of violent crime victimization is 1 in 42. The poverty rate is 30.7%. Only 50% of residents are employed. The population is around 25,000, but the impact of crime makes it feel like a war zone. Bessemer was once called the Marvel City during its steel boom era. By the mid-1980s, 1/3 of the workforce was unemployed. Amazon opened an 800,000 square foot fulfillment center in 2018, but even that hasn't turned things around. And Bessemer isn't alone. Travel west, nearly 2,500 miles away, and you'll find a much bigger city facing a disturbingly familiar problem. Oakland ranks number 2 for violent crime among cities over 100,000 population, with a rate of 1,925 per 100,000, 5 times the national average. Property crime is 7,256 per 100,000, which is 4 times the national average. Your chance of being a crime victim is 1 in 11. 97% of California communities are safer. Between 2023 and 2024, businesses fled Oakland in unprecedented numbers. In-N-Out closed its only Oakland location in January 2024, citing crime, something the chain had never done before. Denny's closed after 54 years. Target, Starbucks, Subway, and Taco Bell all shuttered locations. 3 major sports teams left Oakland. The Warriors moved to San Francisco. The Raiders moved to Las Vegas. The Athletics are moving to Las Vegas. The city is literally losing its identity. There is improvement though. Overall crime dropped 28% in the first half of 2025. Vehicle thefts decreased 46%. Whether this trend continues remains to be seen. Baltimore achieved 133 homicides in 2025, the fewest in nearly 50 years. That represents 3 consecutive years of double-digit decreases. Non-fatal shootings dropped 57.3%, and carjackings decreased 36%. So why is Baltimore still on this list? Because even with these improvements, the violent crime rate is 1,606 per 100,000, 347% above the national average. Baltimore has the #1 robbery rate nationally among major cities. The poverty rate is 22.4%, triple the national average. The city is improving, no question. The homicide clearance rate jumped from 43% in 2020 to 68.2% in 2024. Baltimore even saw its first population increase since 2014. But 133 homicides are still 133 families destroyed. The city has a long way to go before it's truly safe. Detroit ranks number 3 for violent crime among large cities with a rate of 1,181 per 100,000, 5 times the national average. The murder rate is 38.7 per 100,000. Property crime is 4,478 per 100,000, which is 129% above the national average. The poverty rate is 35% for adults and 51% for children. The median income is around $36,000, half the national average. The population has crashed from 1.85 million in 1950 to roughly $633,000 today. That's a 65% decline. Detroit filed an $18 billion bankruptcy in 2013, the largest municipal bankruptcy in U.S. history. But here's the thing, Detroit is actually recovering. 2024 recorded the fewest murders since 1965. Property values rose 19% in 2024, marking the 9th consecutive year of increases. The city reduced abandoned homes from 47,000 in 2013 to under 1,000. Detroit might be one of the few cities on this list with a genuine comeback story. According to FBI 2024 data, Birmingham recorded the highest murder rate of any major city at 58.8 per 100,000, 7 times the national average. Violent crime is 1,694 per 100,000, which is 372% above the national average. The city is more dangerous than 98% of Alabama communities. Your chance of becoming a crime victim is 1 in 16. Birmingham has 233 police officer vacancies. The force is severely understaffed and response times suffer as a result. The poverty rate is 24.7%. In the first half of 2025, homicides dropped 51%, falling from 76 to 37. That's significant progress. But aggravated assaults increased 10%, and property crime rose 9%. The city is making strides, but it's still one of the most dangerous places in America. St. Louis maintains America's highest murder rate per capita at 54.4 per 100,000, nearly 11 times the national average. The city held this grim title for 3 consecutive years. The assault rate is 1,170 per 100,000. Total crime is 8,710 per 100,000, which is 301% above the national average. The cost of crime per capita is $11,055, the 3rd highest nationally. The population has fallen below 300,000 and continues to decline. People are leaving St. Louis in droves, and it's not hard to understand why. There is some good news. Homicides fell 22% in early 2025 to the lowest mid-year numbers in over a decade. But even with that decrease, St. Louis remains one of the most dangerous cities in America. The downtown Walmart closed in 2024 after repeated thefts and violent incidents. When Walmart, a company known for sticking it out in tough neighborhoods, gives up on you, that tells you everything. Memphis holds the #1 spot for violent crime among U.S. cities, with a staggering rate of 2,501 per 100,000, nearly 6 times the national average. FBI Director Kash Patel declared it the homicide capital of the nation in May 2025. The total crime rate is 9,400 per 100,000, which is 344% above the national average. The murder rate is 41 per 100,000. The vehicle theft rate is 714 per 100,000, #1 nationally among major cities. Your chance of becoming a violent crime victim is 1 in 40. The child poverty rate is 38.8%, the highest among large metro areas. Adult poverty increased to 24% in 2024. Memphis ended 2025 with 184 murders. Homicides dropped significantly from 399 in 2023 to 235 in 2025. The Tennessee National Guard was deployed in September 2025. Operation Rolling Thunder netted 370 arrests, including 92 gang members. Memphis is improving, but starting from such a high baseline means it's still one of the most dangerous cities in America. Cleveland and Detroit consistently rank #1 and #2 for poverty among large U.S. cities. The poverty rate is 28.3%. Over 50% of children under age 5 live in poverty. The median income is around $33,678, half the national average. Violent crime is 1,614 per 100,000, which is 336% above the national average. Cleveland ranks #1 nationally for burglary among medium-sized cities. The foreclosure rate is 1 in 208 homes. The population has crashed from 915,000 in 1950 to roughly 365,000 today. That's a 60% decline. The education system is failing. Math proficiency is 25% compared to the Ohio average of 50%. Reading proficiency is 37% versus 57% statewide. 73% of schools received below average ratings. Cleveland represents decades of economic decline, white flight, and institutional failure. September 19th, 1977, Black Monday, when Youngstown Sheet and Tube shuttered, killing 40,000 steel jobs. That single day became the symbol of Rust Belt collapse. The population crashed from 166,688 in 1950 to roughly 59,000 today. That's a 65% decline. The poverty rate ranges from 34.8% to 40%. The median income is $34,695, less than half the national average. The housing vacancy rate is 19.2%. 15.2%. Only 15.5% of residents have a bachelor's degree compared to 33.7% nationally. Chronic school absenteeism is 47.2% versus the state average of 23.8%. Kids aren't showing up because they see no future. On May 28, 2024, a downtown explosion destroyed the Realty building, killing one person. It felt like a metaphor for the entire city. Flint's lead-contaminated water crisis poisoned 100,000 residents from 2014 to 2019. The final lead pipe was replaced in July 2025, 9 years after the crisis began. The population has fallen from 197,000 in 1960 to roughly 80,000 today. That's a 60% decline. The poverty rate ranges from 38% to 41%. Child poverty is between 50% and 70%. The median income is $33,141, half the national average. Violent crime is 3.5 times the national average. The homicide rate increased 11% in 2024. $659 million in settlements was awarded, but much of it hasn't been paid as of April 2024. And here's the kicker: 0 criminal convictions for officials after 7 years of prosecution. A March 2024 study found measurable harm to children's mental health and school performance. 1 in 5 residents met criteria for clinical depression. 1 in 4 had PTSD. There was an 8% increase in children requiring special education. The water might be fixed, but the damage is permanent. Gary has lost more than 65% of its population since its 1960s peak, transforming from steel capital to urban ghost town. The current population is around 69,000, down from between 180,000 and 200,000 at its peak. 30% of residential properties are unoccupied. 20% of buildings are totally abandoned. There are an estimated 15,000 empty homes. 28 abandoned schools became crime scenes with 1,833 police calls between 2019 and 2024. In 1995, Gary recorded 129 murders and was dubbed Murder Capital of America. The poverty rate is roughly 3 times the national average. Gary Works employed 30,000 people in the 1970s. By 2005, that number had fallen to between 6,000 and 7,000. The bodies of serial killer victims were dumped in abandoned houses. Gary is what happens when an entire city's economy collapses and never recovers. In 1989, HUD officially designated East St. Louis the most distressed small city in America. That title remains accurate today. The population has crashed 78% from 82,366 in 1950 to roughly 18,000 today. Unemployment is 15.3%, with some areas approaching 20%. The poverty rate ranges from 31.6% to 35.1%. Child poverty is 48.1%. The median income is between $21,324 and $30,992. The median home value is $38,153, 1/10 the national average. In 2013, East St. Louis had the highest per capita homicide rate in America, 18 times the national average. This is a city that was once named an All-America city in 1959. It was called the Pittsburgh of the West. It was the birthplace of Miles Davis and Ike and Tina Turner. Now it's a cautionary tale of complete urban collapse. Jackson's water system catastrophically failed in August 2022, leaving most of the city without safe drinking water. The federal government had to appoint a third-party manager to run the system. The water system requires $2 billion in upgrades. Only $600 million has been allocated. The city experiences 55 water main breaks per 100 miles annually. A safe rate is 15 or less. 50% of the water produced doesn't generate revenue because it leaks out of broken pipes. The population has dropped 23.2% since 2000. The poverty rate is 26.1%. Unemployment is 13.3%. The crime rate is 40 per 1,000, and Jackson accounts for over half of Mississippi's murders. In October 2025, the city council voted 6-1 to request the return of the water system to local control. Citizens are frustrated with federal management, but whether the city can actually run its own system remains a question. February 3rd, 2023, a Norfolk Southern train derailed, releasing vinyl chloride, butyl acrylate, and ethylene glycol into the environment. 2 years later, 73% of surveyed respondents meet criteria for Gulf War illness symptoms. 85% report anxiety, 82.5% experience muscle pain, and 80% have sleep problems. In October 2024, the EPA identified 14 additional contaminated soil areas. There's still no comprehensive health registry established. Trains carrying vinyl chloride still pass through at least twice weekly. The Railway Safety Act died in December 2024 without a vote. No major reforms were implemented. The residents of East Palestine are living in a contamination zone with no end in sight. This 85-mile stretch between Baton Rouge and New Orleans contains over 200 petrochemical plants, producing 25% of U.S. petrochemicals. According to a Human Rights Watch 2024 report, chloroprene levels near the Denka plant are 14 times the recommended safe level. Cancer risk is 50 times higher than the national average in Reserve, Louisiana. Low birth weight rates are as high as 27% compared to 11.3% statewide and roughly 9% nationally. Preterm births are up to triple the U.S. average. Nearly every census tract in Cancer Alley ranks in the top 5% nationally for cancer risk. Of 12 facilities studied between 2020 and 2023, only one complied with all 3 relevant federal laws. The EPA dropped its investigation in 2024. In February 2025, the Trump administration planned to dismiss a lawsuit against Denka. The residents of Cancer Alley are being slowly poisoned, and the government is allowing it to happen. Bakersfield has held the title of #1 worst air pollution in America for 6 consecutive years, according to the American Lung Association. Year-round particle pollution is 18.8 micrograms per cubic meter, more than double the safe baseline of 9. The PM2.5 concentration is 3.4 times the WHO guideline. Bakersfield also ranks #1 for short-term particulate pollution and #3 for ground-level ozone. Schools use purple flags for air quality days worse than red. The nearby Lamont community is 94% Hispanic with a 35% poverty rate and a refinery less than 2 miles away. The bowl effect traps pollution. Heavy rail freight, intensive agriculture, and the oil industry all contribute to air quality that's literally killing people. Phoenix recorded 608 confirmed heat-related deaths in 2024 and experienced 113 consecutive days over 100 degradie, the longest streak ever recorded. 49% of heat deaths were people experiencing homelessness. 77% occurred outdoors. 75% were men. 60% of victims were age 50 or older. 57% involved substance use. 88% of indoor deaths had air conditioning present, but 70% of those units were non-functional. People are dying in their homes because they can't afford to run their AC. Urban heat inequality means poorer neighborhoods are 10 to 15 degrees hotter than wealthy areas. Phoenix is becoming unlivable for anyone without significant financial resources. But even though the heat in Phoenix kills you slowly, in our next city, it isn't the weather, it's policy, addiction, and a system bleeding out in plain sight. San Francisco spends $846 million annually on homelessness, yet for every 1 person exited from homelessness, approximately 3 become homeless. The 2024 homeless count found 8,323 people, a 7% increase from 2022. Chronic homelessness increased 11%. Family homelessness increased 94%. Over 20,000 people seek homeless services annually. In 2023, San Francisco recorded 810 overdose deaths, an all-time high. 653 were from fentanyl. That's more than 2 deaths daily. 40% of deaths occurred in the Tenderloin and Soma alone. Fentanyl is $100 per ounce cheaper in San Francisco than in NYC, Philadelphia, LA, or Sacramento. The city has become a magnet for addiction. The business exodus is unprecedented. Office vacancy is between 34.5% and 35%. Westfield Mall defaulted on a $558 million loan in June 2023. 3. Nearly half of downtown stores have closed since 2019. Nordstrom closed its 35-year flagship. Whole Foods closed. Macy's Union Square closed. Old Navy closed. More than 200 businesses have left California since 2019, more than any other state. San Francisco represents the failure of progressive policies combined with a housing crisis, a drug crisis, and a complete institutional breakdown. San Francisco was supposed to be the blueprint for the future. Instead, it's become a warning. These 30 cities represent different flavors of American decline. Some are drowning in violence, others are choking on pollution, many are buried under poverty with no way out. The common thread: decades of policy failures, economic collapse, and institutions that stopped working. If you're considering moving to any of these places, think long and hard. Low housing prices come with a cost, and sometimes that cost is your safety, your health, or your future. Choose wisely.